Why is he wet all the time?
Because it's Florida.
It's Florida. Yeah.
My answer was the movies in the 80s. They got the mist boy off to the side.
Mist boy.
Spritzing people. It is impossible to understand what is going on from the very start.
Oh, that's actually completely incorrect.
That's. I feel like that's a comprehension of life problem. There's a bigger issue afoot here.
Ernest can't save this movie. Forget about Christmas.
Oh, that's so wrong.
Oh, that's false. He does save Christmas.
Objectively.
That was a 1-star review on IMDb. Hello and welcome. We are Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Steven, joined as always by Andrew.
For Christmas, I would like $1 million in non-consecutive unmarked bills.
It's a very specific request.
Wow.
And Ryan.
I just want to not run away from my family anymore.
So let's kick this off with Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Woo! And in case we haven't given away at this point, we're reviewing 1988's Earnest Saves Christmas.
So last year we did Jingle All the Way.
Yeah.
We had to have another like campy Christmas movie.
Sure.
I feel like all the super genuine ones like Muppet Christmas
How do you
Carol.
talk about?
Like, how do you talk about
How do you
that
talk
movie?
about?
It's basically a perfect
How do you
film.
talk about
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life? Like,
Yeah.
What do you do? Yeah.
Yeah, ring the bell, whatever, the angel, the wings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Discussion over.
Let's get in here and just trash talk. It's a Wonderful Life. I'm sure that'll go over well.
No, yeah.
Actually,
great.
might.
I mean, it was not
Hold on.
It was not well received when it first
People
came out.
hated it back in the day.
Which is crazy. It's I love that movie. It's
is
fantastic.
People just didn't want to be maudlin back then.
I
And
guess
just like, I just want to cry.
I just want to cry.
Anyways, we're not talking about It's a Wonderful Life. We're talking about
No.
Ernest Saves Christmas. And we're going to do this in a roundtable discussion. So no spoiler wall, or more correctly, the
if
spoiler
you
wall's
haven't
right
seen this
here.
movie, you're really there's nothing to spoil.
I mean,
it's in the title.
The title spoils it, right?
He
Ernest
saves Christmas, guys.
Yeah.
It's right there. Yeah, if you care about spoilers from an Ernest movie in the 80s, then like you need to talk to someone, a medical professional, because yeah. Anyways, round table. Spoilers are loose from the get-go.
Before we dig deep into it, though, real quick gut check. What do we think?
So this is the first time I've seen an Ernest film.
Oh my
period,
gosh,
ever.
we have an Ernest virgin over
I
here.
loved it.
Yes! Yes!
It was-
Win one for the Ernest crew.
I was cackling.
Yes!
Yes!
Thank you. Andrew, you need to watch all of the Ernest movies. 'Cause
Ernest
you know
goes
what?
to camp. Ernest goes to
Start
camp
with
is
camp.
probably the best.
They're all this, Andrew.
So all the films are the same director.
Oh really?
You always have Ernest. You have some of the other cast shows up over and over again.
Over and over. Bobby, yeah.
Bobby, the
Gaylord Sartain.
the two airport
grandmas.
workers.
Yeah. With the eyes.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
shouldn't side with him, honey.
Oh, yeah. Him doing the grandma character shows up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you like this one, so director, what's his name? John Cherry. John R. Cherry III.
Nice name.
He cites this as the best Ernest film.
Honestly, it was really
It's a really
fun.
good one.
Which he's done all of them. So
Yeah.
theoretically he should know. I think just from a childhood perspective,
Camp is better.
Camp is better.
Yeah.
Camp was the first one. Camp was like that
Like
for
the
me.
mold.
First one I saw, and it set the tone
Yeah.
for
And
it changed my life.
It definitely has, but it definitely has some of the 1980s, 1990s kid power vibes to it.
It does.
So and fight the power kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's got a little hack the planet.
It's got the like
Hack the planet.
hack the planet. It's got the same kind of like. There's a sad moment in the middle of it. It's
yeah.
kind of like the Big Bird movie. What's it called?
Oh,
The one that
I know
Sesame Street?
Follow that bird, catch the bird. something like that.
Follow that bird.
Yeah, when like Big Bird's blue in the cage and he's singing the sad song.
yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot of the movies, kids movies had like that, like really low point.
Because that's
you know.
the 80s. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to traumatize kids in some way.
Put
Yes,
Artax in the swamp, like we gotta get him. But I think Ernest Goes to Prison might be the worst one.
It's pretty bad. There's a couple that I don't think I've ever seen. Like
Well, actually-
Ernest Goes to Africa and Ernest
Honestly,
Ernest
the
Joins
only two
Army.
that I would probably hit would be Ernest Saves Christmas and Ernest Goes to Camp.
Now Ernest Scared Stupid.
Ernest Scared Stupid's really good. Don't sleep on Ernest. So
It's
basically,
actually kind of scary too.
in my opinion, the Ernest cinematic universe ends at Scared Stupid because everything after that was, I
kinda
want
like
to say,
cash-in.
straight to VHS.
Yeah, Ernest
or,
Goes to Jail is pretty bad.
Yeah, that one's like
pretty
right in
stupid.
between this one and Scared Stupid. So Scared Stupid to me is like a return to form.
Gotcha.
kinda.
Yeah. So it's like Pink Panther movies.
Kind of,
Oh,
yeah.
Where
But
they kind of go off the rails a little bit, then they come back,
they
then they
went
go
back,
off.
yeah.
but after Scared Stupid, and I can't attest to it, I just know that like it all looked
It's
very
like you
cheap.
don't watch Mulan 2 or
Right,
Little
yeah.
Mermaid
Yeah.
2.
And that was probably around the same era of the 90s.
And this
when,
was a Disney product, so
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I knew
this
it
is-
was on Disney Plus, but I didn't know if that was like it originally was.
so the
I think there's some other ones on Hulu right
I mean,
now.
it was very safe comedy.
reasonably,
Yeah.
but like the semi sleazy, like producer, who's
Yeah.
not his agent, but the producer for it is modeled after Katzenberg or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Jeffrey
Oh,
Katzenberg,
wow, really?
because he and the director got into it a bunch apparently.
Well, so I mean, you guys heard my knee jerk reaction. What about you guys?
Yeah, sorry, we got way off on a tangent. Ryan,
I grew up on Ernest.
yeah, same.
As anyone who has seen me can tell, I dress like Ernest. I walk like Ernest.
You talk like
I talk
Ernest.
I've
like
actually done Ernest for Halloween. In the
Yes.
past. Yes.
I've thought about it. I've never done it, but
It's a really easy
I've got a
costume.
brown hat and like
Yeah.
the jacket, the vest. So Ernest was, again, it was one of those movies that my parents had like a specific affinity to certain comedies. Obviously, Monty Python was huge in our house growing
Oh,
up.
any kind of like absurdist comedies at that point.
They loved Cheech and Chong, all those, which have a very absurdist bent on a lot
Yeah.
of them. And Ernest was another one. A lot of Mel Brooks. We had, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, History of
Princess
the World, Part
Bride.
1, Princess Bride. A lot of that. But like Ernest movies were like a special treat because they are technically kids' movies.
Yeah.
So this felt like, I remember as a kid being like, this is my movie, but my parents want to watch it with me.
Oh, okay.
Not like they're renting a
Yeah,
movie and I'm watching it and it's funny. It's like, I want to rent Ernest
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
me as a
yeah.
kid movie. And the parents are like, this rules.
Yeah.
So let's watch. You know what I mean, Vern? Like, you know what I mean, Vern was quoted in our house daily, maybe weekly for sure.
yeah.
Which another fun thing is like the Vern scenes in every one of these movies are all first person from Vern's
I loved
perspective. How he just bursts in that happens in every one of the Ernest movies. There's a Vern scene and Vern never talks. It's just the first
Yeah.
person of Ernest just unleashing chaos into this home. So okay.
So there is some point to that too, because so the character of Ernest was created for commercials.
Yes.
Oh,
So
really?
Yeah.
he was a whole series of commercials promoting like Coke,
Yeah.
checks, a couple of things. And
Jim Varney
all
was
the-
Like Jim, I know Jim Varney is just a great comedian.
yeah,
Yeah,
but all the commercials were filmed as Jim Varney showing up at Vern's house.
Yeah.
So it's that same perspective
Oh,
when he's in the
okay.
house. That's all the commercials where he's just talking to Vern. So, oh, you gotta check this out. You gotta blah, 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 blah. You know, a million miles an hour while messing
Yeah.
stuff up and everything. Those were the commercials. So that's kind of how it evolved into. It had also as a TV show as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy though when you think about it. Where you're like, oh yeah, it's just series commercials, and people were like, we love this.
Yeah. Well, in the 80s, that happened a lot.
wild.
He has such a different, like, he has such a very specific comedic style.
He really does.
Where it like like the movie taking place in Florida, I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Oh, he's such a perfect Florida man right there.
He really is.
Yeah.
But the funny thing, like, because whenever I think of like Ernest, just from what I've seen from like pop culture, because I haven't seen one of these movies or anything like that.
Yeah.
Is that in my mind he's actually an idiot.
Right.
Like I'll say like Mr. Bean or like Inspector Clouseau, where he just kind of like bumbles his way through it.
Yeah.
He's legitimately competent in this.
Yeah. There's a
Like,
lot of times where he's actually really good.
He's really well meaning. He's really kind of clumsy, and he doesn't like think things through and stuff. But when he actually does something, you're like, bro, what the heck?
Well, so
Yeah.
then like there's a
master
line.
disguise over here. What the heck?
There's a line at the end of the film where he's like, "Oh, I messed it up again." I'm like, "What did you haven't messed up anything."
Right. Except for Vern's house.
Yeah, except for Vern's house. Like, you're a destructive force of
You
nature,
stop
but
paying
like
attention to him. He's ripping the freaking electrical cords out the wall.
that scene, like when he started like pulling on it, I was like, okay. And then he started ripping it, and I was like, oh no,
no.
And then they cut back, and he's ripped it through
Andrew just had electrical work done in his house. He's watched this like,
I was laughing so hard at that scene.
My wife was cackling, and we discovered because she only watched like the first half with me before she was like, I gotta go to bed, you know. And I was like, I asked her, I said, have you ever seen an Ernest movie? Because again, he's doing stuff and she's losing her mind. Oh, she's like, this is unhinged. Yes, pies and snakes, and she's like, what is happening? And I was like, have you never seen this? And she's like, I don't guess I have. And I go, have you seen any Ernest movie? And she goes, I don't know. And she's like, I'm aware of it. And I was like, dude, me and my wife are about to marathon all the Ernest movies. So to wrap it up, I like Ernest. I always have. This just made me, because I genuinely was worried before we watched it for this, because it's been a long time since I've sat down.
Yeah, I just like, watched it.
Oh man, what if these like
what if these are terrible?
What if these are just terrible? You know, I had the same thing with Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, which came out around the same time, which was another comedy that I watched as a kid and loved. And me and my wife watched it for Halloween last year, and I was like, I don't know if it's going to hold up. It rips. It's awesome. It definitely holds up. But to your point about Ernest, I love it. How do you feel about Ernest?
I love Ernest. This is, again, I grew up on this. This is the kind of comedy my dad loves. My mom's entertained by it. So it's really easy for me to be like, I want to watch Ernest. And they weren't like, ugh. Well, like, because follow that bird. Ugh.
This falls in line really hard with like Monty Python and Mel Brooks. And it's just kind of an extension of that, but much safer for kid-friendly comedy.
Yeah.
Where it's
they don't even try to make a joke to go over a kid's head.
No, it's not as cerebral.
Yeah, it's just funny.
Constantly, nonstop.
Well, actually, I have a point on that, or a pushback. So the film is phenomenal for the first like 3/4 of the movie because it's all Ernest all the time, and he's just hilarious. And then he kind of takes a backseat in his own film while they're trying to like, okay, we need to move the plot along here.
We got to get Santa and
they
the
set
girl.
a lot of threads going, right from the go. But no, I love these films. This just makes me want to watch Ernest Goes to Camp.
I know.
Again, it's my king of Ernest films.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's so good.
It is. It's so good. And the thing is, I had the same concern that Ryan did of like, man, I haven't seen this film in like 15 years easy. And I don't know like how my wife's she's never seen an Ernest film. Like, how is she going to react to this? And there are some moments that are just so over the top for her where she's like, okay, what's going on? What? I don't, ladies, what is happening here? She legitimately, she asked me in the middle of this film, so did you wear a seatbelt in the 80s? Like, yes.
Seatbelts were definitely invented before then.
Well, but, you know, like there was a whole run for a long time where people just wouldn't wear them. But my mom worked as a nurse in hospitals.
I did not wear a seatbelt until I was probably age 5 or 6. I remember vividly laying across, like, not the back seat, but the window across, like, the headrest of the back of the car and just, like, looking at the sky while we're just traveling down the highway.
90 miles an hour.
My parents are just, like, smoking inside the car, you know,
windows are rolled up.
Yeah,
there's no air.
My wife sent me a clip on Instagram recently of reel of it. It was a news story from like 86. Like to me, way too late that they were making drinking and driving illegal. And I was like, you're telling me like before this in this area, it was definitely somewhere rural. And there was this guy was like, you're telling me I can't put in 12 hours of hard work and drink a few beers on the way home? It cuts to this lady and she's sitting here and there's a kid in diapers in the seat next to her, no seatbelt. She's smoking and she goes, before you know it, we'll be communist Russia. You can't even drink. She has a beer open in the console. She looked like she was 19 years old.
Right,
and I was like, this is
America.
What the 80s were wild, y'all.
America.
They were confirmed wild.
But yeah, no. Again, I'm so happy this held up. And at the end of it, I'm like, one, I want to watch Ghost Camp. And two, why hasn't this been in my Christmas movie rotation?
Yeah, well, this is definitely going to hit the Christmas movie rotation for us now.
So what's crazy
I keep thinking of the scene when he gets in the sleigh and the elves are just screaming the whole time.
Dude, I love the elves. The elves are so good.
Honestly, the elves are kind of horrifying.
But they're like almost too realistic.
Yeah, there's like a little bit too real.
Real quick. So Ernest Goes to Camp was 87. I thought it was earlier than that. Ernest Saves Christmas was 88.
Yeah.
Goes to Jail was 90. And then Scared Stupid was like... Let's see here. I had it just a second ago and it dropped out. 91. So it was like bang, 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 bang.
So what happened, right? All right. So there's a little bit of trivia.
Yeah.
John Cherry, right, working on the film. He met Jeffrey Katzenberg and who the big dude was at Disney at the time. I didn't write it down. I can't remember the name now. But he met them at like a Denny's. and they're like, "Hey, we need to talk to you." And he's like, "Man, we are getting canned." And what it turns out is no, they didn't want to shut it down. They're like, "We want to go from it was a 3-picture deal to a 6-picture deal."
Wow.
Yeah, so that's where this.
So clearly it was popular.
Well, and it was profitable.
Yeah.
So they made this movie for $6.5 million.
Wow.
It had a worldwide theatrical gross of $28 million.
Wow, that's a heck of a return.
That's a really good return
for a specific Christmas film for
an
a
Earnest
kids comedy.
Yeah. So like
in the 80s,
these are making money. There's some pretty crazy trivia about it. The original draft of the film had Ernest become Santa.
See, I was actually worried that they were going to try and do that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they didn't.
Yeah, so Disney actually balked at the idea, saying, and I quote, he would not mesh with the classic take of Santa, which is just true.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he just doesn't fit that kind
He's
of
just not-
archetype.
he's just
He
not
means well and he's genuinely like a good guy.
yeah, but he's too bumbling.
Yeah,
and
he's
you know what I mean?
Ernest. Yeah.
So during filming, Disney was in a contract dispute with the Teamsters Union. You want to talk about what the 80s were like, right?
Oh, wow.
So the union protesters would stand outside of the chute and fire off firecrackers whenever Cherry would call action to ruin scenes.
Wow.
They put sugar in the production truck's gas tanks.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
They intimidated the hair and makeup crew to not show up to work.
For Earnest Saves Christmas?
Yes.
right.
And then they would steal the craft service from the set. So the food for the actors and cast, they would go in and steal it.
Oh my gosh.
It got so bad that Disney had to move production to the Disney MGM studio lot because it's private property the union can't access
yeah.
at all. Yeah. So
That's crazy.
I was reading
That
that, I was
is.
like, that's buck wild. Like the 80s are crazy.
It's like this movie got made despite
Yeah.
the domestic terrorism that they were undergoing.
And then also, just as the other piece here, this is the second movie from 1988 that features Robert Lesser, that is set at Christmas, and whose opening shot is of a plane landing at an airport.
Which one's
Robert Lesser is the businessman?
Marty Brock. It
No.
says on IMDb.
Is that it is Marty?
But I don't know who that. I'm trying to get his.
Marty
picture.
Brock is the agent.
Oh.
Oh, that dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the lazy eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got no pictures on IMDb. He scrubbed it.
You know what the other movie is from 1988?
What?
That opens with a plane landing?
Die Hard?
Die
Yes.
Hard? Yeah. I was gonna say.
Is he the feet in the carpet guy at the front on the plane?
Maybe. I'm not totally sure, actually.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think he
I don't
is.
think so.
I think he's just in Nakatomi.
He's just in
Tower.
Nakatomi.
He's just one of the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
in it. But either way, it's really funny that this guy was in 2 movies that both came out the same year, both released around Christmas.
I was in Die Hard and Ernest Saves Christmas.
I am Christmas.
I've pretty much made it, guys.
But yeah, I mean, this film is it's wacky, it's goofy, but like it also, I think it has some pretty heartfelt moments.
There's some good heart in it.
dang.
Yeah.
So honestly the weakest part is just the actual through line with Santa trying to convince Joe to be Santa.
I think they don't do enough to endear you to Joe.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Because like most of the time, he's just kind of like just follows whatever his agent does, and he doesn't seem to have any actual agency.
doesn't do- he just
you
doesn't-
have like a brief glimpse of it when he's like talking to the kids.
Yeah,
at
and I'm
the
like,
front.
oh, okay, this is kind
Yeah.
of like Miracle on 34th Street style.
Yeah.
I feel like what we needed was like a clip of Ernest watching his like last kids show on TV. Like it's just on in the background.
Yeah.
And you get to see what kind of a kids show it was, and you get to see him say, well, friends, this is it. We're signing off, and I don't know if we'll be back. Like you see that somewhere early in the movie to kind of set him up and
Yeah.
see a little more. And yeah, I'm with you. More interaction with him and kids to figure out if he should be Santa.
'Cause, like-
all you see is him reticent not to say a curse word on the set of the movie.
or
really.
shoot someone. But like at the same time, you start out with like the introduction to Santa is honestly
great.
like A tier.
Yeah, it's
like,
really good.
The 1 star talking about you don't know what's going on. It's like, man, they lay everything out for you early on.
Like it is. explicitly clear about what's happening at all time. Yeah. And I really liked the little B plot with Pamela. Like I thought, like, especially at the end there, whenever like she gives him the bag back and you know, he was like, you know, I never doubted your friend. Well, maybe a little bit.
But when she gets like actually emotional, like, I was getting emotional. I was like,
like, am I tearing up for this movie?
And because you never like, in another movie, in other versions of this movie, you would have gotten the seeds planted of like she's like you would have gotten a lot more backstory from her earlier.
Yeah.
You don't really even get a lot. You just know that she's run away. She's going through something.
I love the little conversation that her and Santa Claus have, like whenever they're waiting for Ernest to. When he's dressed up as the old lady or as the mom.
When they're outside waiting.
And he's, you know, he basically tells you her situation, and she was like, you know, well, she just needs to learn how to grow up, and you know.
she's talking
and I was
about
like,
sideways.
Ooh, this hits.
Yeah,
like it was really good.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Like it's and Ernest Goes to Camp has some of that. Like there's a lot of like heart in some of these movies.
So Ernest Goes to Camp hits with his song in the middle.
Oh yeah, that's the Big Bird moment. I don't know if Scared Stupid has anything.
I don't
in
think
it.
it's just kind of vaguely scary.
I have to watch. It's been so long.
It's like a troll. So there's like a troll that's turning kids into little like wax figures and hiding them in a tree or something like that.
That's horrifying.
And once enough are in there, it like resurrects the rest of the trolls.
Gotcha.
It's actually kind of like, as a kid, I was like, this is
it's a little scary. Yeah. It's a little scarier than you think going in. You're like, whoa, ruh-roh.
Yeah.
I'll never. That's a whole podcast. Different. If we ever do Scared Stupid, I got a whole story on it. But that's a whole other thing. Let's stay on task.
Stay on Christmas here. Keep it in line.
I always love another recurring character is Chuck and Bobby. Like those two guys pop up.
I didn't know what to think of them initially, but over the course of the movie, I was like, okay, these guys are pretty fun.
And every time, like initially, right, when you first cut away to them and they're unloading the crates, and you're just kind of like, okay, what is this bit? But every time that you cut away to them, you're like, okay, let's add to this. Let's add to the stack of the reindeer here of something crazy happening. Which they actually shipped reindeer down from Canada to Florida for the shoot.
Oh wow!
Well, the climate change, it got so much warmer for the reindeer that they started shedding their antlers.
Oh no!
So they had to reschedule the shoot 2 months later and do it further north. They had to do it in Tennessee, so they wouldn't. So they would actually
some antlers.
So they actually keep their antlers. Yeah, they're like, do we just like make
tape them on?
Yeah, no, borderline that kind of conversation. Yeah, could you imagine how terrible
we don't have any Teamsters to tape antlers. What are we gonna do?
Man, I love their whole little bit, like with them arguing over the bill lading.
Yeah.
Or who it is, and then like when the hoof comes through the crate and he sprays it with the freaking fire extinguisher.
I cackled at that.
That's when my wife lost it, because I that's always been one of my favorite shots of this movie, and I knew it was coming. And I'm like sitting on the couch, like getting giddy, and then it like, and he and like the freaking fire extinguisher.
I like Bobby's always just got that face.
Yeah, he's got like the bitter beer face, dude. Like, look, he's got that. And then my wife was losing her mind because she's like, "Why did he have a fire extinguisher?
What do you expect?"
But I mean, like, what else? What do you have around? I don't know, a fire extinguisher. We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I will say, just kind of talking about like some fun shots and stuff.
Yeah.
The director loves his POV wide angle.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, it's really fun.
It is.
Well, it's very unique. You don't get that very often.
Yeah. A lot of times, especially whenever Ernest was dressed up like the mom, the really close up shots with the overhead light to create
like the underlight on it. He's like,
dude,
don't side with him, honey. It will never end. I had two sons. Unfortunately, the good one died.
Well, also, like, that bit, like, it's really easy to look at Ernest, like, well, he's just stupid. But when he's doing that and then also imitating the governor's assistant, it's like, holy, like, he's just drilling this character.
Well, because that's the thing is, like, throughout the film, he's actually genuinely very competent. He's just clumsy.
He's just, he's got puppy dog energy going on.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things where everything he does, he means well. And when he needs to actually do the thing, he does the thing. But then he, goes to Vern's house and just destroys his entire drywall.
Vern can afford it.
Yeah, apparently. Well, I also like how Pamela in that scene is also just like all in on it. She's just walking around. She's like, oh, this is nice. And she's just like eating food and that kind of stuff where just doesn't care about whatever Ernest is destroying.
Well, the whole bit where he like props the tree up in there. Like, yeah, that'll hold. Like, oh, look, punch. And it just falls out behind him. Like all this stuff is just, the bit.
Auntie Nelda is the name of the old lady character.
Yeah.
That
he does that character in multiple other movies.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. Oh, that's a recurring Ernest.
Awesome.
Move.
Yeah.
The bit with him as the snake guy.
Oh yeah, he rolls up.
One, like, boy, this looks like Ernest in his natural habitat. You know, like
Florida.
Yeah, like he looks like Florida man.
Santa Claus is in the back with the water hose.
With the little rattle.
Then they throw those real snakes in there at the.
Well, so I love whenever like Ernest walks over to the pickup, like to the bed, and he starts like poking at it, and I'm like, clearly that's just a person.
I know.
Yeah. Well, like the bit, like Santa goes in and he's just standing there. Like, oh, you the snake guy? I'm the snake guy. All right, good. And they dump him in there. When they dump him in, my wife goes, why are they wet? But like they pour these snakes in there.
They were in a wet basin. And it's like, why?
He turns around and looks at the camera. She's like, ugh. Like, well, this is a problem.
I love whenever Santa comes back out and he's about to get in the back of the truck, and Ernest is like, yeah, you probably should just sit in the cab.
You should ride up here in front of me. And then they're like out at just the random place that he's just throwing the snakes on the bed.
It's just one of those movies where like every time that there's a scene where he just can just kind of like chew on some random bit of comedy,
let him just go off.
It is just side-splittingly funny.
Let him just monologue, man.
Yeah. Well, because like, and you know, I don't know like how much of that was scripted and how much was improvised or anything like that for
I imagine
his type of comedy. I don't know.
A fair amount of it's improvised, and again, he and Cherry. So like looking up the character of Ernest P. Worrell for the commercials, right? It was created by, and of course, I have moved off it, the Cardin and Cherry Advertising Agency. This is John R. Cherry.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like, and I assume that the name's related here. So like this guy's worked with Jim Varney for like almost a decade at this point.
Yeah, I got something here.
Okay.
So while there are a few different stories about how the name of the character came to be, Lloyd said the origin of Ernest can be traced back to a man that worked with John Cherry's father.
Okay.
A real know-it-all type, like one of these, like I can do anything. I can be a cab driver. I could fix drywall. I can do whatever. As for the name, Cherry liked the Worrell for the last name because, quote, it sounded like you had marbles in your mouth.
Oh, it does.
It works really well.
He said giving this sort of awkward character an awkward name just made sense.
Oh yeah,
like, of course, yeah.
But like they've worked together for a really long time, even at this point. So it's like,
so they probably just have like a really good shorthand of like, okay, in this scene, I want you to do this. This is where we need to end up.
We need to get from here to here, and then he just choose scenery as he goes, and they understand the limitations here. Like I feel like you've got to have that. Otherwise, this kind of character and this kind of action just doesn't work.
No, yeah, I think so too, because you need to have that kind of spontaneity of a character like that to just like whenever he's flipping the flapjacks whenever she's like waking
he's just
up,
flinging them off
flinging them off, and then just out of nowhere he just brings the plate and they all just fall down, and it's like there is no logic at all.
But like in that moment you're like, well, he's an idiot, and then he does that, like, wow, you're really confident. Then he immediately puts his hands on the ground, back to an idiot. He's buttering his hands.
Yeah, just like each scene just goes through just like different layers of fun, and there was never like really up until the point where he like basically gets the flat tire and then they start going off on the sleigh, and basically he kind of takes a backseat to the rest of the film.
Well, at that point he's just sheer slapstick.
Yeah, because they're like, okay, we need
to
circling
the earth at warp speed.
It's like we just need to get the plot along to where we can have this final scene where everyone's all the same spot.
Yeah. Which I think wouldn't have been as bad if again we had more setup with the
like
dude
Joe,
to care, because like the girl, all the scenes with her,
great.
During that section are like, okay, cool, we're getting some resolution. But the Santa stuff drags because it's like, we know this guy's been resisting doing this. We need, to me, more than like he just looks up. The guy's a jerk to him in the board meeting, and he sees Ernest flying, goes, "It's real,"
and then
that's
he's just
out. And it's like I needed more.
It kind of worked a little bit in that when Santa goes to make the final pitch, he's got the fake bag and doesn't, and he knows it, but he doesn't really like like, well, I'm here now. I got to commit anyways.
Yeah.
So it kind of works there where it's like, well, like if he had just simple, no big deal, pulled the magic ball out of the bag,
right?
Joe's all in.
Yeah.
So, and then none of that happens, right?
Yeah.
I do think that there's really good setup with Santa himself. Like he's a really good character.
That actor's really good.
Douglas Seal, the whole movie, like about halfway through, I was like, he sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
He's the Sultan from Aladdin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, there it is. Like, because obviously around that time, and I was like, he just sounds so familiar. And I was like, where? Because I looked at his filmography and I was like, I haven't seen him in anything else.
He's done Rescuers, Fern Gully, a lot of animated stuff. Amadeus. There's some other stuff.
His actual arc was really, really good because, clearly he obviously wants to find a replacement stuff, but he still has that Santa Claus magic and he looks like Santa Claus too.
Looks it to a T basically.
Yeah. I was actually kind of happy because it felt like they were moving down like the Miracle on 34th Street kind of like route, and I'm glad that they kind of veered away from that. I think one of the things that I liked about this movie like a lot was so like a lot of times like let's say like when you watch like a comedy like I'll say Talladega Nights, right?
Yeah.
You have Ricky Bobby where he actually goes through a character arc, the whole thing. Right. Like initially he's one thing, and by the end of the movie he's a different person, still the same guy, but
he's learned,
he's had
he's
some
grown.
character growth, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where Ernest, like he is technically the main character of his movie.
Sure.
But there is no character growth needed for him to exist.
Ernest
for the plot to happen.
Is the tent pole, and all the character development happens around
exactly.
him.
Yeah. It's very similar to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, to where Ferris Bueller, he's technically the main character, but Cameron's the actual one that has
actual arc.
Yeah, that has an actual character arc. Where Ernest is the exact same way. He's a superhero compared to everyone else.
Yeah,
and everyone, all the character development just happens around him because there's no character development needed for him to exist.
And the movie might suffer from it a little bit just because it does start a lot of threads.
Yeah.
And it struggles a little bit, most like we said with Joe.
He's such a strong character.
All the screen time spent away from him, you lose. Like what comedy does Joe bring?
Basically none.
Yeah.
If Joe could have brought a little comedy himself and been like an endearing person, then it'd be a flawless film.
Like at the same time, you look at
perfect 10 out of 10.
The arcs.
Take that, Scorsese, you hack.
You look at the arcs, and none of because like Pamela is not particularly comedic. I think she plays off of
Ernest really
well. Yeah. But she's more of her own version of a straight man.
Yes.
Santa is a straight man.
Yeah.
And then Joe is a straight man.
Well, yeah, and the problem with Santa is he's a straight man, but he doesn't know that he's a straight man.
Right, exactly. He's like the whole bit with the
which makes
the play
him
money.
A funny man.
Yeah, like the bit with the play money or like the passport coming into the airport or like any of those things. He's just playing this dead as serious as a heart attack, and it's hilarious because everyone else around him is like, I'm sorry, what?
Well, whenever he like takes out the play money,
Santos.
whenever he takes out the play money, and I'm like, oh no, like you're just kind of like losing it here, aren't you?
Yeah. He's like, oh no, Santa.
Like, well, I had a considerable amount of currency that I gave to a 5-year-old. Or like the bit when he's in the jail, right? And they like open cell to you, they put him in all these hardened criminals. My wife's like, why would they put the old man in there with the criminals? Like, I don't know, it's the 80s. And then like it cuts back to him and he's leading them in Christmas carols. He's won them all over. They go in and tell Varney or Ernest in character is telling him, you're not Santa, you're just crazy. Like the big tough guy gets up in his face. Like, he is Santa. Like that kind of stuff plays out really, really well.
It does, yeah.
There's just so many good little bits in the movie, like Ernest playing off of Pamela as the niece and the assistant.
Oh yeah, that was all well
the chemistry in that scene is great.
Yeah. I really think the only weak part is Joe Carruthers of like we don't get enough with him. Or any scene with him made me go like, this guy's the next Santa. This guy's got what it takes to take the place of this jolly old man over here. You know what I mean? Like, because it's almost in contrast. It's like he seems like a nice, affable guy, but
we basically have to take Santa's word that this he winnowed this list down and this is the one.
And like I think honestly, like if you tweak it a little bit to where you actually get to see it and not get told to us that hey, he's a good guy, we promise. that honestly elevates the film quite a bit if you can have that kind of through line with it.
Because like from like a slightly different angle, like if you put a little more cynical spin in this movie, this would just be, hey, Santa's actually wrong, and this guy who's lifelong children's show guy, he's messing with kids, or it's just like, you just went you chose totally wrong. Yeah, you watched it through TV, Santa. No,
it's interesting too, because like I always feel that there's so many movies, especially like in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, where it's just like Santa's hanging up his hat, he needs to find the replacement. Like, so you have like the Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Yes.
Yeah. Then,
which that was later, right?
That was very early 2000s.
Very early
2002, maybe.
No, not that.
It may have been late 90s.
It may have been 99.
I feel it was late 90s.
It may have been 99 because I think at the time it was like, man, these special effects are actually pretty good for the year.
Yeah, when he grows the beard.
There are so many, like when he gains weight.
Yeah.
But you're right. The idea of like the hanging up the mantle or
passing on the torch, whatever you want to call it.
Which is the one where he kills Santa and he becomes, is that Santa Claus?
Okay.
That is.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I was way off. The Santa Claus is 94.
Yeah,
94.
Okay. I was going to say,
I was thinking it was like late 90s, early 2000s for something.
I did too. I don't know why.
But yeah, I feel that there was a lot of these storylines that kind of happened where Santa's trying to find a replacement.
Pass the mantle.
Which I guess maybe that was just a trend that,
Well, it feels almost like that's something that's it's gotten built into like the culture around it, where it's like, it's a mystical mantle.
Yeah, that gets handed off. It's not just one dude that's been doing it for,
Santa in this
years.
movie even talks about, passing the torch and how it recharges the magic and all this other.
Well, I liked at the end whenever, the girl or the lady.
The secretary?
Yeah, the secretary. She was
liked her.
Mary.
Mary,
like, we haven't actually been formally introduced. And he's like, well, I guess my old name was, I can't remember, but it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, oh, that's kind of really sweet.
And it's really cute too, because they even established slightly before that of like, she's locking up. Oh, well, Mary, you're lastly. Well, I don't have any family to do anything with, so I figured I'd let everybody else. Like, I feel like if we maybe had gotten some time, because like her interacting with Ernest and interacting with Santa were really good.
Yeah.
Maybe had her interact with Joe, and we could have learned more about
just
him.
a little,
like there just needed. It's one of those things where it's not the complaint is, well, I just didn't like the character. The complaint is we need to spend more time.
Just a little bit more time.
Well, and you don't have to have it. The movie works without it.
It's fine. It's fine.
To be clear, but it's just like I think it's because too they put the sleazy
agent
with him. Is that it's like just by comparison, anyone looks better than that dude. So
whenever he drove up, I was like, he's in the Mercedes, he's the bad guy.
He throws the keys at the mailman. I'm like, I really wanted to see that play out. And they come back out, and the Mercedes is gone. The guy's throwing mail into mailboxes from a Mercedes.
That actually would have worked really well.
That'd be great. But really, it's just that like Joe himself. And this is no knock to the actor, I guess, necessarily. It's like when you're next to the dude playing Santa, Douglas Seal, I had to look at his name, and he just has that Santa vibe.
Oh, he's just got it going,
like immediately. You like they even in that opening scene, like you said, this is A+, just how they introduce Santa. Just he steps off the plane.
And like, that's Santa Claus.
That's Santa Claus.
Yeah. The kids in the airport keep glancing at him.
I actually really liked the guy that he was talking to, and and then you get the little bit of the Christmas magic at the end where he sees the snow, and he's like, you know what? We'll just figure this out later.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's Christmas Eve. Go home to your family. We'll work the deal out next week. Yeah.
And it's like, it's call me cheesy or sappy or whatever, but whenever that happens to like someone that's not even a character in the film, and you're like, all right,
that's the hallmark of a Christmas movie. It's like it gives you that like warm fuzzies for like no reason other than just like 'tis the season.
I love him too. Like when the guy's like, really, I think it's for Christmas. I just wish it would snow. And Santa's like, snow? Oh, I thought you wanted a CD player. Like pulls out his notebook. He's gonna make a note.
I really do like the part where. Chuck and Bobby call animal control and they come in.
Oh no, you need
the
FAA control,
air traffic control. Whatever they say, they back out. And they're he's got that toothpick. And he just looks up. His eyes go back and forth, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna need the FAA or whatever." She said.
This is somebody else's department,
Yeah.
Or they're like the elves when they're going through like customs or whatever, and it's the same guy, and he's just like, whatever, and he stabs it like, thanks Skippy.
Yeah. I really do love the part when Ernest is losing it in the sled, and they're looking, they're like, we're gonna die! They're screaming. And at the end, I think we could have an assistant driver. And they're like, no.
Well, I like so the casting for them is kind of interesting too, because when they were first introduced, my wife was like, "So do you think they're kids or just little people?"
Yeah.
And I was like, these people are old, and we looked them up. Like they're born in like the 30s. These people, they're like in their 50s and pushing 60 in these films. It's like these are like adult, you know. These are some old people doing these roles, and it works so well because it's kind of it gives you a little bit of that otherworldly feel of elves, because like elves are always such like little fresh faced youths. And when you have these characters introduced, they have almost a little bit of like a Grimm's fairy tale, like slight, a little bit with horror,
like
a
little Tim Burton.
Yeah, that's a good Tim Burton. Yeah, where it's like, oh man, like I don't like if these things smile at me and they got pointy teeth, I am out. I'm out. You know, but like the whole bit with him in the sleigh is amazing.
It's incredible.
Just the hyper speed
hyperdrive.
He's like, what does this do? Don't touch
it.
He pulls off that one part and it's just sparking, and the elves, they like lean to each side of him and go, ah! It's just like that on paper is stupid. I cackled. I was just like laughing like this is so dumb. It's the lowest common denominator.
They absolutely look at this film and say, okay, we're going to make the reindeer and the sleigh and these three characters fly around Orlando and then the world. And they're like, you know what? We don't have the budget or the technology for that. So when the sleigh shoots by, close up. Just real tight in on tight in on the front end of the sleigh and just like the flanks of the reindeers that shoot by. Yeah. And then we're golden. You know, after that, everything else is just hangs
close
in midair.
up on Jim Varney as he goes, whoa, and is pulled out on an office chair or something.
When they like stop in space above the curvature of the earth, and he leans over the edge like, nobody move or we die. Whoa.
Well, and then like whenever they're coming and crashing down, air brakes.
He looks straight at the camera, like air brakes, ding.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of these things where, like, in most movies, if you try to pull it off, I'd be like, this is dumb as all get up. But here, you're like, this is so stupid, it's so good.
Yeah. Jim Varney, like, there's very few people that can pull off this level of, like,
just absolute absurdity.
Just cheesy absurdity. Yeah. It's like someone that does a dad joke that's really good, and you're like, oh, that was a good dad joke.
They just sell it.
Yeah. They look you dead in the eye and say it, and you're just like, ugh.
Well, I hate to laugh at this, but it's so good.
Because, like, whenever we say, like, absurdist comedy, like I always think of like Monty Python, which is like one of the best like absurdist comedy bits.
Right.
And this is not that. It's just like,
well, it's like Monty Python if you had cast Jim Carrey in the role. But within a Monty Python movie or skit. Yeah. Because like I keep trying to think of, well, who else could I compare this to? I can see some Robin Williams
a little bit,
making this work. And I can see Jim Carrey making this work.
Definitely Jim Carrey.
But both of them would play it differently than Varney does. Well, because I think he just makes it work.
It's just because he just looks like an everyman.
He really does. He looks like if you...
Well, and that's the idea behind Ernest, too. He's just this dude.
He's just a guy.
But if you were like in a gas station behind this dude and he's buying a pack of smokes, you wouldn't even question it. You know, like
The biggest thing, too, is growing up in Tennessee, and I think Jim Varney is from Tennessee.
I think so, too, yeah.
And like I know people like Ernest. Not that have like super Bugs Bunny powers that break reality, but like dude.
But they're just genuinely good guys.
Hey man, how's it going? How you been? You know, like hey, let me tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm going to do it right now. You know,
there's no boundary and there's no like once you're in a conversation, buddy, like just you committed to this talk.
You're there.
You're here.
You're there. Yeah.
That's actually kind of like my electrician.
Yeah.
Ernest.
It's Ernest, right?
He's an ultra nice guy. He loves animals. Me and him get along great. And he loves to talk.
Yeah.
And he's very much a Southern guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. But it's everything about Ernest just always works for some reason.
I'm with you, Steven. I think this is going to be in my Christmas movie rotation now. Like after having watched it again, I was like, man, why was this not just in my rotation anyways? Yeah, this is gold. Yeah. Yep.
Well, already on that note, we are kind of, winding down here a little, getting a little slowing it down here. There's only so much you can say about
Ernest. We've pretty much hit on all the fun parts of the movie.
Pretty much.
Stay tuned for our spin-off podcast, Earnest Every Day, where we do a daily update on Earnest.
I mean, the sound effects too, when the reindeer go to the ceiling. Yeah. Like they make sure you're looking at the characters. Don't see this happen. We can't animate this. There's too much budget.
But it sells it. They all just look up, and that Gaylord Sartain is the actor that plays Chuck, the bigger guy. He's such a good physical comedian. Like, his reactions when he's looking up at the ceiling as they fly up there and he's looking left and right. Yeah. And then Bobby's back there like,
that bitter beer face. Yeah. Okay. Well, before we let you go, we got to talk about the single best way to support the show.
Patreon for just $1. You can get access to all of our bonus content. Yep. We have lots of fun stuff that are not normal podcast material. We will do rankings. We will have ChatGPT give us ideas for movie titles, and then we will fill out the rest of the movie.
Yeah, we get a little crazy with it, have a little fun with it.
Yeah.
It's good times.
It is. We've done a lot of fun episodes over there. We've ranked a lot of foods. We've done like anime starters.
We've made ourselves.
We did chip tier lists. We did sodas. We did Halloween candy.
We made ourselves sick every time.
Yeah, but we've done like intro to Gundam. We've done a bunch of like starter packs on
comfort food movies.
Comfort movies that honestly Earnest Saves Christmas can fit definitely into that.
See, the thing is, Ernest Goes to Camp is an every season movie.
Yeah, that is.
It doesn't have to be Christmas time. Yep. Comfort right there.
Anyways, $1 supports the channel. We appreciate it so much. And thanks to all of our patrons.
Indeed. Well, as we're running out of time here, if you would, as always, follow us on socials, leave us a review wherever you're listening now, and share us with a friend. But until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ryan.
And every spoiler was
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.